Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products has got you covered. Denton Day will be with us in half an hour. Talk some Commanders football with him. We'll certainly talk about the college football playoff as well. But right now, we'll chat with our guy, Glen West, Go 24/7 senior writer, usually with us on Tuesdays, but we're off tomorrow. So Glen, good enough to make some time for us today. He'll join us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glen, how are you?
Doing well, Hunt. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays right back at you, sir. You were obviously in the PMAC back on Sunday watching some hoops. Mike Williams not with the team for personal reasons. Your thoughts on his kind of disappearance over the last month and what that means for LSU's backcourt?
Yeah, I mean, there's just been a whole bunch of change with this team that's gone on over the last couple of weeks, and I think you saw in the first half on Sunday just kind of how they're trying to adjust with some of the new realities that they have. But, you know, Mike Williams has not really been a part of the mix here for, as you mentioned, a better part of a month. And I think that, you know, we got to take what McMahon is saying right now, what Matt McMahon said, which is, you know, he's away from the team for personal reasons, but they should have him back after Christmas. You know, to me, that signals some kind of, you know, coach's decision, you know, possibly a suspension, but you know, we'll see kind of what happens with Mike when they get back from the break, but he's really kind of fallen, you know, out of the rotation. And, you know, I think the biggest thing that he did for him last year was just provide some perimeter shooting, some pretty good on-ball defense at times. He was able to get his hands in passing lanes, but right now LSU has a pretty deep backcourt right now, and they go about 5 or 6 deep, and there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of room right now for Mike Williams, who's a backup point guard.
Curtis Givens, the last 2 games, 11 assists, just 1 turnover. What have you seen from him as he's kind of taken that backup point guard role now?
Yeah, he was certainly a bright spot on Sunday, I thought. You know, he still hadn't been shooting the ball particularly well, but I do think he's going to be a pretty good shooter for this team eventually. But he's definitely a lot more in control of his game over the last couple of weeks, and you know, you're seeing it reflect on the box score with his passing, his decision making. I thought he was really solid as you know, the kind of that backup point guard on Sunday, and really was on the floor for a lot of LSU's big run during that game. You know, they were really not playing very good, clean basketball for the first 25 minutes or so of that game, and they were able to finally go on that, you know, 18-0 run, 22-1 run, and Givens was out there for a good portion of that. So he's somebody that can get the offense going in the half court. He, like I said, is a smart decision maker. He's strong with the ball in his hands, and can get his other teammates involved. So once that shot really comes along, I think he's going to be a really valuable piece down the road. But until then, he's also providing you some really good defense and some obviously really solid passing as well.
Are you concerned with LSU's shooting right now, specifically from three-point range?
I am. I'm concerned with a couple different things. I don't know how this team's going to be able to hold up on the boards when SEC play gets here. I mean, UNO was battling with them on the boards for the first 25 minutes or so of this game as well. And this was a game where you really hope LSU would have come out and put them away early, and you know, not had this be something that lingered into the second half. And you know, a big part of that was the 9 turnovers in the first half, but also the rebounding. And you know, UNO's been a pretty solid rebounding team, and hasn't been a very solid rebounding team. LSU hasn't either. So how that kind of translates into SEC play is going to be very interesting for me to watch. But the one way that you can kind of combat some of those issues is by making shots, and LSU just hasn't really been able to make a ton of shots right now from beyond the arc in particular. You know, Jordan Sears got off to a pretty rough start. Cam Carter's got to be a little bit more consistent for you back there as well. So I'm you know, it's going to be something you have to watch for the good portion here of SEC play. Is just, so many of these teams are really good three-point shooting teams, and that's going to be the great equalizer, I think, in a lot of these games. So LSU's got to be able to find out their rotations, figure out what the best ways to get their guys open looks, and those guys got to knock them down at a little bit more of a consistent rate going forward.
All right, let's talk a little bit about football. Of the transfer portal additions that LSU has made, has any stood out more than the others to you?
Yeah, there are a couple. I would say the signing of Mansour Delane was one that really came together quickly, and he's somebody that's 6'1", 6'2", can fill a number of different roles for LSU. He's probably going to start at corner, but I could also see a scenario where if LSU's in a pinch, they could move him back to safety and he could produce. So he's somebody that I think could fill multiple roles in that secondary as a veteran guy. I thought that was a really huge pickup for them, and really kind of showed how much they're coming to bat and how much they're playing ball with the transfer portal cycle this year to go out there and get a guy like that. And then the most recent one, Braylon Moore, getting a veteran center in here, a guy who's got a lot of starting experience. I think that was a absolutely crucial move because I think it also solves maybe another position too, which is with DJ Chester. I think you can slide him over to guard, and all of a sudden now you have a couple spots that you feel pretty good about. I really like that move with Braylon Moore, and that was something we were expecting for a while, but to make it official here before the holidays, I thought was really important and a really crucial move here to have somebody under center with Garrett Nussmeier that has some of that veteran experience and leadership that they can lean on next year.
How much differently do you feel about LSU's 2025 team today than you did a month ago?
Oh, I mean, so much differently. I think they've addressed a lot of the positions in need that they really had to go out and get. I mean, we talked about the center and some of the secondary moves, but the edge rushers have been really impressive between Pyburn and Jamari Butler and Patrick Payton. I think that you can certainly make an argument here that defensive end edge rusher position should be really strong next year for LSU. They'd be able to rotate a bunch of guys in there and have some effect. And then, wide receiver, you needed to go out and get some playmakers. You got Nick Anderson and Barian Brown, who were two of the more explosive players in the SEC. I know Anderson didn't play last year, but in 2023 he was one of the biggest up and coming stars in the entire in all of college football. So to get those two on board for this season, you add Nick Sharp, the tight end. I think that they've done a really nice job of kind of addressing a lot of their needs and being aggressive with going out and getting guys with SEC, Big Ten starting experience. Now you just got to figure out safety. You probably got to add another offensive lineman, possibly another tight end, but they've done a really nice job to this point, and I think you can feel a lot better about this roster because of some of the moves they've been able to make over the last 2 weeks.
You got all your Christmas shopping done?
I haven't. I gotta go. I gotta go. I've got to go do some shopping here this afternoon, but we'll hopefully figure it out and be battling. But we'll try to find some parking spots and get some gifts here over the last 24 hours or so.
Nothing like waiting to the last minute. I appreciate the hustle. All right, Glenn, thanks for being flexible with us today. Have a great Christmas, and we'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it.
Glenn West, senior writer at Go 24/7. All your team coverage, all your recruiting coverage, they got you covered over there at Go 24/7. Glenn, usually with us on Tuesdays, but instead decided to slide things around since we won't be here the next 2 days and chat with us today. And I always enjoy our conversations on a number of different topics with LSU sports. Hit a little basketball and a little football there in that segment. Denton Day is going to jump aboard in 20 minutes to talk all things college football. When we come back, there's a position that actually Glenn just talked about there briefly that I'm really encouraged by with LSU now that I wasn't as of a month ago. Let's talk about that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Property and casualty, they got you covered. Group employee benefits, they got you covered there as well. It's your one-stop shop as far as insurance goes. Highland Insurance Group, Jonathan Carbo and his team, they're an independent broker. Means they've got dozens of markets available to best place your insurance if you're a commercial business. If you think about insurance and you just say, well, here's what it costs and not really sure what it does, that's one way to handle things, but it's probably not the best way to handle things. You should trust your insurance broker to put you in the right position and then understand why they did so. And that's what the kind of relationship you're going to have with the Highland Insurance Group. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. you're going to need insurance, and they can help you out with that. Whether it's EPL, crime, D&O, umbrella, cyber, whatever the case may be. If you're not real confident in what your insurance program does, call the Highland Insurance Group or check them out online at highlandig.com. It's highlandig.com for the Highland Insurance Group.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Lovely song. Lovely time of year. So a reminder, we will be off tomorrow for Christmas Eve and obviously off on Wednesday for Christmas Day. Back in action on Thursday. Matt is out this week. Musso going to be in the captain's chair today and on the back end of the week on Thursday and Friday. Similar situation in terms of days of the week next week, but Tuesday being that it is New Year's Eve and LSU will be playing, we will not have our normal ESPN lineup of shows, but we will have Eagle 98.1 game day, and obviously I'll have the pregame show over there at LSU. We'll have the broadcast, and then I'll have my postgame show as well on New Year's Day. On New Year's Eve, we'll take New Year's Day off next week. So it's just I think a lot of folks pretty excited when Christmas and New Year's fall right in the middle of a week, just kind of like napalm's 2 weeks of productivity. But we will be in action for 4 days next week and 3 days this week. So hope everybody has a safe and wonderful Christmas, and appreciate y'all for making us part of whether it's your travels or just some time off or you're in the office. We always do appreciate it. One of the things that is very difficult to argue against is that LSU's defensive ends this year really stepped up their games. Braden Swinson went from kind of a platoon guy to an all-conference level player who will likely be a second-day NFL draft pick. I think that's reasonable to suggest. And Savion Jones, who really never emerged his first 3 years on campus. I think he was kind of the guy that you thought would be next. It was kind of like Calevon, and then you had B.J. Ojulari, and you thought Savion Jones might be that next guy when they moved on, and it just never really happened his first 3 years. He had a really solid year this year, I thought, was probably a little bit better against the run. It's not just an absolute demon coming off the edge like Swinson was, but those two guys played really good football, and I think that Kevin Peoples deserves a lot of credit for that. There's a reason when Blake Baker came down from Missouri that he wanted Kevin Peoples on his staff. He wanted to have that guy coaching his edge rushers. And so when you see that kind of an improvement for two guys in 1 year, it excites you about what could be next. But then you realize that Swinson's moving on and Savion Jones is moving on, and Deshaun Womack is going to the transfer portal, and he's now at Ole Miss. It was a pretty empty room there on the edge. It was kind of like Gabe Relaford, Dylan Carpenter, and like that's kind of it. But LSU has rectified that situation in a big, big way. It started with Jamari Butler, obviously, from Nebraska, who's a good athlete, 6'4", 245 pounds, had 7 tackles for loss this past year and a pair of sacks. Then you go and get Jack Pyburn, who's a crazy man from Florida, 6'3", 265, and an excellent run defender. Not a guy that's had a lot of productivity in the pass rush aspect of the game, but a very, very stout run defender on the edge. Then you've got Patrick Payton, who committed over the weekend from Florida State, and that's a guy who was a really, really productive player in his time at Florida State. You look at his time there over 3 seasons, you're talking about a guy that has tallied 16 sacks and 31.5 tackles for loss coming off the edge for Florida State. Last year, not this past season, but in 2023, he was the opposite edge for Jared Verse and had a really, really productive season in 2023. Had 7 sacks and 14.5 TFLs. But this is a long, rangy athlete at 6'5", 250 pounds that is a big-time talent that LSU pulls in here to add with Gabe Relaford and Dylan Carpenter. So you look at that 2 deep, and you've got Jamari Butler, Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton, Gabe Relaford, Dylan Carpenter. All of a sudden, you've got high-end talent. I would argue that Patrick Payton and Gabe Relaford are big-time talents, and I would argue that Pyburn has a little different skill set that's gonna allow him to be a really good run defender. They'll probably work on his pass rush ability as well, and then Jamari Butler is got all the measurables that you would want as well. I all of a sudden look at defensive end for LSU, and now don't consider it a question mark. I would consider that a strength on this team. We know that LSU's got a defensive coaching staff that has a lot of skins on the wall and has done a really good job at developing talent. And they're starting to accumulate that talent. And I've said this a lot of times over the last couple of weeks, and I don't think I'm going to slow down saying this anytime soon. Like, LSU's next great team is going to be great on the defensive line. This team was not great on the defensive line. But the great teams that we've seen LSU produce are great on the defensive line. They affect the passer and they stuff the run. And LSU's got to get back to that. And the only way to do it is to recruit and develop. And I believe at this transfer portal haul, you're looking at some big-time players. I think that I would struggle to find a surefire first-rounder there, but I like the productivity at the college level. I mean, you're talking about bringing in a guy that has 16 career sacks in Patrick Payton. Like, that is not to be dismissed. And then you consider that Pyburn has proven it in the SEC and that Payton was a starter on an undefeated Florida State team last year. That's big-time stuff that LSU is pulling in. And so you feel pretty good about what LSU's got at linebacker with Weeks coming back, and then obviously with potentially Harold Perkins as well. And then you look at the secondary that Corey Raymond's starting to put together with Mansour Delane, and you bring him in, and then you bring in DJ Pickett, obviously, and you're starting, and Jakeem Jackson, you're starting to look at this LSU defense, and it's a lot more proven than what they've trotted out there the last couple of years. They made strides from 2023 to 2024. You would have had to. You could not be any worse than that. But you're starting to even take that up a tick. And I'll be pretty candid here. Like, I looked at LSU's roster and the schedule for next year in November, and I'm going, this is a recipe for disaster. And what LSU has done to not only just grab guys out of the portal, but plug and play starters. You have got probably, I would guess, 8 starters out of the transfer portal. You've got center. You've got 2 or 3 at wide receiver. You've got probably 2 at corner. You've got probably 2 on the defensive end.
Hopefully they're starters.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean, you talk about 8 starters changing. That's out of 22 spots. You're pushing half. So it's a different team and a different roster than what it looked like back a month ago. Now, you knew this was coming to a degree, but we can't. It's not like recruiting where you've got commitments that you've seen coming for a year and a half. This all happens in a week, and we try to keep up and try to digest it. But it's happening really, really fast, and people are leaving on the other end as well. So I feel like LSU, if I was going to try to quantify this, I feel like LSU may have added 2 wins to this team in the transfer portal. Like, there's no metric for me to put that together, but that's just what it feels like based on the amount of impact players that they have brought in. I understand that it's unlikely that all of them work. Not all of them worked at Ole Miss, but most of them did. I mean, you look at Walter Nolan and Princely Umamielen. You look at Trey Amos and Pooh Paul. Like, they brought in a bunch of guys that we knew about, not that like broke out. Like, we knew, okay, that's the guy. They brought him, and those guys became studs on that team. Ole Miss probably had the best defense in the SEC this year. And it was with majority guys that were from outside. And LSU is hoping to follow that model. I think we kind of jeered at Lane Kiffin when he started doing this, but LSU's kind of following that model. And I don't know how sustainable it is. Ole Miss is trying to do this again, but I'm telling you, if you're adding Sage Ryan and Deshaun Womack instead of Walter Nolan and Trey Amos, like, it's probably not going to quite work to that extent. But it's certainly the way that Brian Kelly's approaching this thing, and I especially at defensive end, I really, really like the direction that they've taken things with big-time talent and then proven playmakers at this big-time level. It's like Nebraska, Florida State. Like, this is not trying to score a Jared Verse out of Albany. This is going to get dudes who played in the best conferences in the country and won big-time games and have been productive that you're bringing into the program. I think it's a really, really good thing. We talked about wide receiver a lot last week, but I'm excited about what LSU has brought in at defensive end over the past week and a half, and I think it's going to make a big, big impact. And then you got to trust Kevin Peoples to get it done, and I certainly do after what we saw from this year. So big, big stuff from LSU out on the edge. Our Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com, all your printing, scanning, copying needs at Gulf Coast Office Products. We will step aside when we come back. Denton Day, talk some Commanders, talk some college football playoff, all those things that we generally do each and every Monday. That's coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Genesis of Baton Rouge, the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana. You go by there. It's a gorgeous facility, fantastic people to work with. You're going to feel like a guest at Genesis of Baton Rouge, not like a customer. I know a lot of folks don't love going to the car dealership, feel like it's a real pressure situation. You're not going to get that vibe at Genesis of Baton Rouge, I promise you. And when you think Genesis, you should think luxury. When you think luxury, don't think, I can't afford that. It's luxury vehicles at reasonable prices. It's a fantastic experience to go in there and do your purchasing with Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single new Genesis of Baton Rouge, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10-year 100,000-mile warranty, plus 3 years of complimentary maintenance. It's all at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. No matter what vertical market you may work in, Gulf Coast Office Products has clients in that line of work, and they know the needs of that industry in terms of printing, copying, scanning. So whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in medicine like that, or whether you're in education, banking, law, like us, media company, they handle our printers, copiers, scanners, and they can handle yours as well. Check them out online, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. Appreciate Trey Beal and his whole team, great partners here of the Hunt Palmer Show and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. They bring you our Monday shows each and every week, and on those Monday shows, we hear from our guy Denton Day, SiriusXM's college football overtime. We do so now. Denton, how we doing?
Hunt, I am on cloud 5, not cloud 9, cloud 5. I got a quarterback.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Seen him in person before a few times, and it generally went pretty well. Yesterday was pretty awesome. Even though Jalen Hurts goes out of the game, still it's a huge win for Washington, and Jaden was fantastic down the stretch, as he has been multiple times now. What are the vibes in the nation's capital about that?
Crazy. I'm 29 years old, Hunt. I've never seen more than 10 wins this season in my lifetime being a fan of this team, and there are 2 games left on the schedule with 2 teams that are not spectacular. Atlanta is working with a new quarterback in Penix, and then you got the Dallas Cowboys. So all they got to do is beat one of them. It clinches their spot in the playoffs, and I get to see an 11-win team for the first time in my life. So the vibes are incredibly, incredibly high.
What do you think about the Commanders' chances in the NFC? The Lions are banged up. You just beat the Eagles, albeit without Hurts for the majority of that game. I mean, what do you think about Washington's chances?
Oh, about 28 hours ago, I would have said, I'm not sure. 27 hours ago, I would have said terrible, because at that point they were getting beat up by this Eagles team. But now I would say, look, we have all understood, or at least those of us that are from this area who are intelligent, if you got a quarterback, you got a chance. And it's now very clear they have a quarterback. And they have a guy, I would say right now, the only guy in terms of clutch that is definitively better than him. Wears 15 on his chest in Kansas City. Outside of that, I think Jaden's in any sort of conversation right now as far as clutch quarterbacks go. It's probably him, and it's probably Joe Burrow. So I don't know. Something's in the water down there in Baton Rouge. But those are the 2 guys. They are calm in the moments where they need to be calm. And he's a winner. He's a winner like this city has not seen in 30 years.
just a crying shame, the defense that LSU put out on the field last year when he was setting records. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors were lighting it up every Sunday, too. It was just no defense being played whatsoever in purple and gold last fall. All right, let's talk about the college football playoff. Let me be open-ended here. What do you think of the weekend?
I thought the weekend was kind of what I expected it to be. I think you and I have talked about this, Hunt, but forgive me if I'm mistaken. 4-12 is always an aggressive idea. It was an aggressive idea. It should have been 4-8. I think if it was 4-8 and then you kind of seeded way better than what we got just last week or this past weekend, even Tennessee didn't look anywhere near on the same level as an Ohio State. There was not one really, really good matchup in there, except for maybe Clemson and Texas towards the end, but it also never really felt like the Clemson was going to get fully within striking distance to do something impossible. So I thought this weekend was exactly what we all should have expected, which is who is a good football team, and there were a bunch of other teams that got a nice payday, but we're not. They're not. It was 4 teams that were not on the level of what it takes to be a championship team.
Would you have rather seen South Carolina or Alabama, or you just think that there aren't enough good teams to fill out a bracket?
Definitely not enough good teams to fully fill out a bracket. I can't think of a year where there has been 12 legitimate championship contenders. Not even in this sport, but in any sport. It's very difficult to do that. With that said, seeing South Carolina would have been awesome. I thought they were playing the best out of anybody towards the end of the season, and I thought the 12-team playoff would have incentivized that. So you can get, maybe a mishap or two early, and then because you play well at the end, and we do this thing called the eye test, you benefit from that. I would have loved to see them. I think Ole Miss would have been fine. Lane Kiffin got kind of annoying towards the end of the weekend with everything that he was tweeting. Alabama, I was kind of good on. Look, you scored 3 points against Oklahoma. Yeah. What were you going to do against Ohio State? I don't care how big game of a player Jalen Milroe is. In 20-degree weather, you're not doing anything offensively in that one. So South Carolina definitely, Ole Miss maybe, Alabama no.
So Hurst Street was kind of on a warpath the back end of the weekend, talking about we can't put Indiana in this thing. SMU, he's just saying, I don't care how many games you win, I care who you beat. Do you think that there is reasonable change that could happen here after this first edition of the college football playoff, as far as seedings or the at-large process or conference champions? Do you think that? He's got a pretty loud voice in the sport. I'm just curious if you think there are changes imminent.
There definitely should be changes in the way that they seed this thing. I am fully on board with the idea of a conference championship getting you into the dance. That is perfectly logical, and I think it values getting to the conference championship, particularly in a conference this year like the ACC or like the Big 12, where you probably don't get an at-large bid. SMU obviously did, but in the Big 12, you probably don't get an at-large bid if you don't have the conference championship thing. So I'm fully on board with that. But then as far as it goes to seeding, you should just get the 12 and then seed the 12 once you have the 12. So Arizona State doesn't need a bye. Boise doesn't need a bye. Look, if you're the group of 5, you get into the dance. That's your reward. You don't get a bye just because 2 other conferences were a little lesser when it came to their conference championship. So I think the seeding certainly needs to be redone. And then maybe you get a few better games on the opening weekend. Maybe. I don't know that the seeding this year would have made that much of a difference. Indiana, look, they just don't have the talent. SMU, they can't play in the cold, and they don't have the talent. And you go from playing in a stadium with 32,000 to a stadium with 106. That's a massive difference. That's a big thing, big adjustment there. So I think that's really what a lot of this came down to.
Yeah, look, if SMU and Boise play, or Indiana plays Arizona State, that's probably more competitive. I don't know if that's the match. That's obviously not what we would get if you seeded them 1 through 12. But that's just the back end of this playoff. I'm a little torn on it. I like the 12-team playoff, and I'm not mortified by what we saw this weekend, because I think that sometimes there will be blowouts and sometimes there won't be. I don't think that this is a complete indictment on the entirety of the process, because we saw blowouts in the 4-team playoff at most years. So right. I'm an elitist. I'm very, very, very comfortable in that skin. I don't need to see SMU or Arizona State or Boise ever play football. That doesn't matter to me, but I know that you are a G5 alum, so I was just curious if you had a different kind of attitude toward that. Do you like the G5 getting a representation?
I do like it, just because I know how much it benefits the program. Liberty's a great example because they went to New Year's Six game last year.
Yeah.
Like that really helped the program, I think, in the long term. So I'm all for it, but you have to understand there is a difference between the real big boys of this sport and a team that maybe won 11 games. Like they're the talent. This is not. I think a lot of people want this to kind of turn into like some form of March Madness where you get upsets. It's a lot easier to have an upset when you're not having to smack a guy in the mouth every single play for 60 minutes. Like there is just a physical difference between the haves and the have-nots in this sport, and I think that's kind of what we saw over the weekend. Though I will say this, Hunt, what took them so long to get home games? I mean, oh my God! Like to the surprise of nobody, the home atmosphere was sensational just about everywhere this weekend. I mean, that needs to be a thing a lot more than just the first round moving forward.
Were you surprised Texas hung 38 on Clemson?
Yeah, just because that offense had not been all that good this year, I thought. Especially the way that they kind of ended their season. I didn't think they were going to have some sort of offensive explosion the way that they did. So that was very surprising.
And let's talk about Tennessee and Ohio State. I'm curious, do you think there is a ceiling on Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava at quarterback?
No, because I think it's fair to think that he's going to get better. And what we saw on this past weekend, it's funny, Hunt, I'm actually an hour out from Columbus now. I'm traveling there with my fiance for Christmas. Like just showing up 2 days too late, would have been a fun environment to be at. It would have been cold as hell though. I think what we saw with him this weekend is that he is not accustomed to the speed of the game when it comes to making decisions. But I do think as quarterbacks get older and they mature, they will get better there. He certainly has athleticism. I think you saw a little bit of gamerism in him in the way that he was attempting to do his best to put the team on his back. I just think there right now are limitations when it comes to processing and throwing it. But those are things that I do think with the right development on the staff at Tennessee can get better in a year or 2 years from now.
Does James Franklin get any credit for beating SMU, or does he still have 2 weeks before he can earn any credit in your book?
I think you get a little bit of credit. I mean, that was a dominating performance. It's funny. We were doing the show late that night, and I said, like, if you just look at the box score and you see what Drew Aller did, you're going to the Penn State message boards and thinking that James Franklin's getting fired immediately. Yeah. But their defense was so good, their running game was so good, they didn't need a big Drew Aller game. I do think eventually he needs to have one. But I think as far as Franklin goes, like, I think right now he's all right. You got the one win. Obviously, beating Boise is going to help tremendously. But I think just making sure that you got out of the first round was huge for him.
Will we hear of Indiana again in the Kurt Cignetti era, or was this their one moment in the sun?
I think we might see them be an above average team in the Big Ten for years to come. I mean, he got really annoying towards the end of this season. It felt like he was having arguments that all of us had walked away from, and he was just banging on the lunch table, still making the same points. And just like, hey, buddy, like, we kind of moved on from this. And then the fact that he went on game day and was like, we beat ranked teams. We beat someone that was ranked 25 in the Coaches Bowl, which nobody cares about. And then he pulled out a reference from when he was at James Madison 2 years ago, beating a G5 Sunbelt, Coastal Carolina, and said, we beat ranked teams. I was kind of done with him by the end of it. I think that Indiana did enough to where they'll be able to get good recruits moving forward, but I don't think they're going to get this perfect balance of good recruits and the weakest schedule that a Power 5 team is going to play.
Yep, I'm kind of with you there. Do you have any interest in any of these bowl games that are non-playoff games?
Not really. I feel terrible saying that because I love the sport. You love the sport. Nick Saban was called a madman 10, 12 years ago now when he said the college football playoff is going to just completely destroy bowl games. He's right. Even as a gambler, I really don't have a ton of interest. I'll just save my money and gamble on the games that I am legitimately invested in.
I think the only game that I know of is I know that USC is playing Texas A&M in the Vegas Bowl. I can't name an SEC opponent for another bowl game outside of LSU. I don't even know, and I don't even know when the games are. I have completely checked out on it. It's a little bizarre.
Yeah, I haven't looked at literally any of them because there's so many playoff games. Like I know there was a couple that happened. Like Florida was in one this weekend. I couldn't tell you the score. I think they lost.
Yeah, they beat Tulane. I know that because that's the New Orleans team here. But I didn't know until that game that day that they were playing that game. I found one of my buddies texted me about it that day, so that's how I found out about that one. But yeah,
It's sad because I did love bowl games.
Yeah, just about toast. It appears. So y'all have a great Christmas, Denton. We'll talk next week and preview those playoff games. All right.
All right, appreciate it, hon. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas to you as well. As Denton Day, SiriusXM's college football overtime with us. I'm serious, Beck. I can't name one other SEC opponent. I'm not sure why I know that USC and A&M are in the Vegas Bowl. I think it's because LSU just played USC, but I don't know who Ole Miss is playing. I don't know. I think Arkansas is in the Liberty Bowl, maybe.
Yeah, I want to say
Bama. I don't even know who's Bama's playing. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Is that bad?
That's pretty. I mean, I guess it is, but is it? I don't know that it is that bad. Honestly, I mean, who really cares?
Bowl game schedule. I'm pulling this up. All right, let's see if I can find. Okay, you got Florida and Tulane. They've already played. Oklahoma is in the Armed Forces Bowl against Navy.
Georgia Tech and Vandy.
Vandy and Georgia Tech. There's a lot of smart people at that game.
Texas
I'm assuming.
Tech and Arkansas.
That's the Liberty Bowl. I was right. Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl.
A&M and USC.
That's in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Can't miss that. Must see TV there. And then is there another
Missouri
SEC
and
team?
Iowa?
Missouri and Iowa.
And the
Music
City Bowl.
Bama's playing Michigan. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been such a great bowl game 15 years ago. The ReliaQuest Bowl.
South Carolina's got Illinois in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Coach Bielema.
And
Duke
and Ole Miss in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl.
So the Cutcliffe Bowl, we'll call that.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all the SEC teams.
That's it.
And that's impressive stuff. We'll be sure to catch all the action coming up for the next couple of weeks with SEC bowl games. We'll step aside and come back. We'll close things out. We'll take it or leave it. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Of a white.
Watched It's a Wonderful Life last night. Greatest Christmas movie ever made.
You know, there's a lot of, at least contemporaries of mine that actually think that movie is terrible and that it's like really sad and depressing, and it kind of is sad.
No, it's not.
I mean, at the beginning at least, but
I mean, he doesn't go down on his luck until late into the movie.
Yeah, okay.
And his dad dies.
Right, but still, I agree with you. I think it's a really good movie, but there are some people out there that think
the
that
writing
it's like really
is awesome.
sad.
I think
it's a good movie.
I think
agree
the
with
star of the movie is just an incredible performance. I don't know any of their names, any of the actors, but we did look up a bunch of their names last night when we were watching and looked at when they were born. It's
1908 or something.
Oh no, Clarence the Angel was born in 1860 something.
Oh my!
It is. It was. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yes.
But still, it just delivers every single year. I watch that movie once a year, usually the Sunday before Christmas, and we watched it last night, and it was awesome. I looked over the end of the movie, and Alyssa's just sitting on the couch crying, which
it's sad.
Seemed to be, it was happy
tears
at the beginning, at the end when he comes back to his family. Oh, drafty house. Great movie. Great film. Enjoyed it very much. Probably going to do a little Christmas vacation maybe tomorrow. We got to watch the Saints tonight, so no Christmas movies in that way. But great stuff last night. We got one more order of business, so we'll take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Alrighty, first one here. Working the day after Christmas. Take it or leave it.
I think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm going to let Taylor do my show. I think I'm going to bail on Thursday's show.
Really, you really just put it all on Taylor, huh?
I feel awful, but he did come up to my desk and tell me that he would do it.
Okay, fair enough.
He came up the stairs to my office and said, dude, if you want to, because I mentioned that Alyssa's tick that I'm working on Thursday.
Yeah.
Because she took the day off. And Thursday's the 26th. Yeah, his birthday is Friday the 27th. I think I've made the executive decision. I think I'm going to let Taylor have it. I got to put in for my vacation. But as we talked about previously, you can only roll over so much of your vacation. I have all this stuff that I didn't, because we didn't go on a summer trip or anything. I've got all this vacation I just never used. So maybe I'll use some on Thursday.
All right, next one here, the NFL on Christmas Day. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. Gonna leave it.
Leave it alone.
It's in the middle of the week. It's a Wednesday. It's weird scheduling.
Yeah.
Somehow the Chiefs are playing on 6 weekdays this year. I don't really need it. I don't watch a lot of sports on Christmas. So I'm sure it'll be on. I don't know what games are on. I guess the Chiefs are playing. I'm sure I'll find a way to have it on somewhere. So, but we're gonna be driving all over the place on Christmas. Plus, we got a 3-year-old, so that doesn't lend itself to a lot of watching football time on Christmas. So
yeah, it's the Chiefs and Steelers at 12 o'clock,
That's
and
a good
then
game.
the Ravens and Texans at 3:30. So both
those
really
are very
games.
good games. I don't know how much I'll weave into my Christmas.
Yeah,
day.
it's going to be tough. Next one, the NBA on Christmas Day. Take it or leave it.
Leave it.
Leave it alone.
I like the NBA on Christmas Day. I'll wake up in the morning. I'll just put the TV on ESPN or whatever channel it's going to be on and just have it in the background. Like I'm not trying to like watch every game intently, but it's just cool to have it on the background.
Yeah, I think maybe as I'm processing these questions, I'm thinking like I just don't watch a lot of television on Christmas.
Yeah,
There's just a lot going on. You've got presents and stuff in the morning, and then you're obviously gonna have a big meal, and we're making 2 drives, and like you're playing. Like, it just doesn't seem like I'm gonna be locked in on a lot of sports on Christmas. So that's not an indictment on the NFL or the NBA that I'm not gonna be watching a lot. It's just kind of the way the day goes.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Steve Belichick will be Bill Belichick's defensive coordinator at North Carolina. That's, of course, Bill's son. Bill took the job to hand it off to Steve. Take it or leave it.
Take it.
I'll take it.
100%. That was like 95% of why he took this job, I think. None of the responsibilities that a college football coach has, I envision Bill Belichick doing a significant amount of. The 25 phone calls you have to make every Wednesday and Thursday to recruits, the sucking up to 16-year-olds on their visit and watching them do photo shoots, the dealing with the boosters and raising money for NIL.
Did you see?
There's nothing I think that Bill Belichick wants to do in that.
There are
realm.
already people like he posted. There was a photo posted of Bill. They got some guy at the transfer portal, I think, and they showed a picture of him at a desk like signing the papers, and Bill Belichick was in the background just standing there like as he usually is, and it's like this guy could care less about signing this kid out of the transfer portal. Like, really?
It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
I have to think that the staff is doing everything.
Yeah.
And Belichick will just kind of handle anything that comes to his desk. I don't think this is going to be, I don't think his job description will be like any of the other college coaches.
Yeah. All right, I got a few more here. Baseball Hall of Famer Ricky Henderson passed away.
He did?
Last Friday after a bout with pneumonia. Henderson is the greatest leadoff hitter of all time. Take it or leave it.
You'll take that.
I'll take it.
There's nowhere you could go beyond that. It's not that position has taken on a new meaning now.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about speed, power, the entire package, on base percentage, scoring runs, which he scored more runs than anybody in the history of the sport. That would be the best. He's the best at that.
And just a note as well, to talk about the Baseball Writers Association, somehow he wasn't a unanimous Hall of Famer. Just astounding.
Well, that was because they were not voting for people so they wouldn't be. It was never the case of the people that didn't vote for him didn't believe he was a Hall of Famer. They just didn't believe that since no one had been a unanimous pick.
So then why did they decide that Mariano Rivera would become the first one?
I don't know how that.
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know how that. Maybe some of the guys aged out of the voting process.
I don't know. But all I'm going to say is Ichiro better be unanimous. Last one
Where did
here.
that come from?
He's on the ballot.
Okay.
Yeah. Bevo will not be traveling to Atlanta for the Texas-Arizona State game. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I mean, I think that's fine. You can leave Bevo back at Austin.
Yeah,
we did this
right.
whole thing with, I forget. What was the name of that tiger?
Omar?
I forgot Omar's name already.
Maybe they should just go pick up a steer somewhere in Atlanta. Just go get a cow.
From rural Georgia.
Yeah, they got Chick-fil-A's over there. They got plenty of cows.
They got cows. Just find another cow with some big horns, put a Bevo thing on. That's just like Omar.
That'll work.
Omar the tiger. Oh, man. That's going to do it. Hope everybody has a fantastic and safe Christmas out there. We're going to take a couple of days off, as we mentioned. We'll be back in action on Thursday. Might be me, might be Taylor. Somebody will be here on Thursday. Merry Christmas, everybody. We will be back later in the week.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeBear's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters all winter long. I've certainly done that a significant amount of times over the course of this football season. LeBear's, specifically ESPN Bet inside LeBear's, is just an awesome place to watch games. They've got huge screens. They can put multiple games on at a given time. Got great seating options, whether it's individual or a group. They've got a great staff there, good food as well. It's an awesome, awesome place to take in games. So whether it's the Saints tonight, whether it's a big NFL slate coming up, whether it's the college football playoff, whether it's bowl games, whatever the case may be, get on by ESPN Bet inside LeBear's and make it your game day headquarters. It's right inside, just to the left when you come in the door. You can't miss it, and you'll have a ton of fun. Blackjack tables right next to the screen, so it's a great spot to watch games and get some action down. You got to be 21 years or older. If you've got a gambling problem, please call 1-800-522-4700 for help.